You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
The latest episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. A big week for baseball and honoring baseball's history, the history of black baseball, the life and the impact of Willie Mays, one of the greatest players of all time. And we welcome you into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, and excited to get to talk about all that stuff from a minor league context and a big league context and everything else. Welcome. My name is Tyler Mon. And Sam Dykstra and Kelsie Hennigan join us on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show because you two got a chance to experience things on the ground this past week throughout not just Birmingham, Alabama, but elsewhere in the South. What's going on? How are you?
Good. Yeah, we got back from Rickwood on Wednesday. We went there for the minor league game on Tuesday between the Montgomery Biscuits and the Birmingham Barons, playing as the Montgomery Gray Sox and the Birmingham Black Barons, and we'll get into that plenty later. Ben is currently on his own road trip. We'll hear from him a little bit later about his early stops in Rome and Rocket City. He's also gone to Memphis, and he's going to some other places the rest of the week. So yeah, we'll hear from Ben later. That's why he's not here right now. He's currently still on the road. But yeah, Kelsie, we got to do that whole drive together. We started in Daytona Beach last week and drove all the way up to Birmingham. Kind of looking back on it, what were your takeaways from the trip?
Well, number one, the name Willie is the name Jackson of the 40s and 50s, and it's just the most popular name. We kept coming across Willie. So Willie Mays was obviously at the center of everything, even before his passing. So we thought about him a lot. But in general, it was such a great trip. We saw so many places in Florida and Alabama, both minor league parks and Negro League parks, and talking to a few people. We'll get into that. But, whenever I talk to people and meet them and they're from a small town, or they're from somewhere, usually the connection is, oh, we have a minor league team there, and I'll talk to them about that. And I'll be like, oh yeah, the Biscuits or whatever. But I think this trip also reminded me that, beyond that, a lot of towns, especially in the South and the Midwest and parts of the Northeast, like they also have this connection to the Negro Leagues. And, they were baseball towns with the Negro Leagues, and they have this history that might not be as on the surface right now, but they were still, have this rich history that was really cool to explore this week.
One of the things that I've loved most over the last several years really is the way that communities across the country have explored their black baseball history in ways that really, we had not been aware of on the forefront level of baseball, of minor league baseball, professional baseball for a really long time. And, we hear about teams throughout the Texas League or the Southern League, and how much black baseball history there was there. The Tulsa T-Town Clowns, I know one of the biggest successes of throwback games in minor league baseball in recent years. And then, as Kelsie noted, we do hear a lot of stuff about, the Harrisburg Black Senators, I think were a team in Pennsylvania, and these areas of the country that maybe we're not as aware of the black baseball history there, but there is so much of it. But Birmingham really is such a hallowed ground in the history, not only of black baseball, but in baseball entirely. And for you guys to be able to be there, I was texting with a former minor league radio broadcaster, Jason Schwartz, the other day, and he said, there is something really beautiful. Obviously, it's sad, but there's something really beautiful about the fact that Willie Mays passed away right before this day, this week that was all scheduled to honor his memory and to honor his life and his legacy and his career. The fact that it would have been amazing to do that with Willie Mays in attendance is pretty obvious, but to be able to do it in a way in which you can look back on his life completely, just days after he passed away, was pretty amazing. And it felt like it gave maybe even a wider or a more 30,000 feet context view to everything that was celebrated this week. A Birmingham native, a guy who played there, started his career, played in the Negro Leagues, and was such a unique force in what he did, not only on the field, but culturally. It just felt like everything that you could have wanted from an event like this came together for an event like this. And it's not often that happens in life.
Yeah, I mean, it was fascinating just to see how everything kind of came together, and I don't want to say Willie's death came together, but hearing about him talk about Birmingham and Rickwood itself and how it was home to him. I mean, like, if you grew up in that area, and he grew up in Fairfield, Alabama, not too far from Birmingham, Rickwood was in many ways the Mecca. It was the place you were trying to make to be a member of the Birmingham Black Barons. Now, he played for a time for the Chattanooga Choo Choos before that, and then went to the Birmingham Black Barons when he was very young, 17 years old. But all of a sudden became the talk of the town. I mean, people flooded out just to see Willie Mays in that park, and the skill set that we know about Willie Mays, right, fit Rickwood so well, because we didn't get to see it on Tuesday because they've changed the fences. There's been a lot of renovations to Rickwood, not just for this week, but hopefully moving forward in the future. It used to be a massive outfield. I mean, the actual fence went all the way out near the train tracks. It was near 500 feet to center field. What did Willie Mays do? He covered more ground than anybody in the outfield. You can only imagine how quick he was as a 17-year-old. So he fit that park really well. But he even had a statement a few days before the games began, saying, all these years later, this was a really important park to me. It was important when I was young. It's still important to me now, and we're both still standing. And that made it all the more heartbreaking, when news broke on Tuesday that he had passed away. But Kelsie, you're the one who told me. I mean, I was walking around the outfield, not in the outfield, but like in the stands out near the right field corner, just trying to take in some sights, see if there was anybody worth talking to, see if I had noticed anybody, that kind of thing, just trying to do boots on the ground, basic stuff. And then I got a text from Kelsie about Willie Mays has passed away. Kelsie, you were over on the left field side. What were you noticing about just the way the park reacted as it kind of spread? Because this isn't 20, 30 years ago. Everybody's got phones now. People are checking it. It's slowly getting around the park.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience. I was in the press box trying to post a video. Actually, Gerald, who's the chairman of Friends of Rickwood, he was saying that it felt like Rickwood was the center of the universe that week, and it was the center of the world. And I mean, that statement only got grander as the week went on. But so I was focused on that, and then Bettelheim, one of the MLB.com reporters we were with, just showed me her phone, and it was the Giants tweet, and it was just I just went completely numb. It was like chills, like just to be here at Rickwood, as we've said, a place that his legacy is so intertwined with, and this week that was to celebrate him, and then to get that news, it was just shocking. And yeah, so I knew that Sam was moving around and probably wasn't scrolling Twitter, so I texted him and just kind of looking around the park, just like kind of looking to see if people are on their phones, but most of them aren't because they're watching a baseball game. And just kind of wondering, like, when's the PA going to make an announcement? When's it going to happen? And we did the whole 7th inning stretch. Like, people are smiling and they're dancing and like, singing, one of baseball's great songs, or if not the great baseball song. And then, so that was the middle of the 7th. And then we have a whole half inning. And I'm sure it's because they're working on what they're going to say. They're working on the video tribute and all this stuff, and working up the nerve to be able to say those words. So then before the top of the 8th, they did a video and made the announcement, and everyone clapped and cheered and said, "Let's go, Willie." And I was thinking, I had just assumed we'd do a moment of silence, but it was almost more touching that everyone cheered and that everyone said, "Let's go, Willie." And it was like, this legend both on and off the field. And, we were celebrating him and not just mourning him, which was also a big part of it too. And it is good that, around the league the next day, major league teams did moments of silence, and is important. But in that moment, it was almost comforting that everyone was cheering there together. And MLB Network captured the moment. And the first thing they show is a guy looking at his phone. And usually when you see a guy on his phone at a game, you're like, oh, get off your phone, it's annoying. But like, you could see that he's recording the moment, and then he just hangs his head to cry because he's a Giants fan, he has a shirt on, and like, it was just very raw and real moment. And especially to be there at, his former park just meant that much more.
Yeah, I think, and I don't use this term lightly, I mean it quite literally. It was one of the most awesome moments I've ever experienced in my career in baseball. And I mean, just in terms of the sheer awe of it. It was so organic. It wasn't like it slowly started. It was everybody clapping at once. And, I was trying to record it myself, and there are people like tipping their caps towards the outfield, towards the Jumbotron that is in right center. But I kind of took it as just like tipping their hat at the field in general, knowing that Willie Mays was there. Chandler Simpson, Rays prospect, currently leads the minor leagues in average and stolen bases, had himself a really good game. Was talking about it afterwards. He's like, you kind of felt his spirit there throughout the game in general, and then you find out he's passing. He's like, he is definitely here. I mean, take that for what it's worth. You can believe in that kind of stuff if you want or not, but just knowing that Willie Mays is infused with Rickwood Field is enough. It makes guys want to be their best and show off in a park like that. And for Chandler Simpson, who is a center fielder, who is a guy who can hit for average, can show really good speed. Two of the things that Willie Mays was really great at. He might have been the best five-tool talent the game has ever seen or will ever see, to be honest with you. It was really special to see everybody kind of come together in that. And that, listen, part of this too is he was 93 years old, right? Like, he was not traveling to this game because we knew
Right.
he was, he's old. Like, that's just the way it was. But he had lived one of the best American lives of the 20th century and into the 21st century, and had so many stories, and we got to share all of those and to acknowledge them and celebrate them in that way, and not just be filled with grief, to be filled with celebration that we got to know Willie Mays, whether you saw him play or whether you got to just hear the stories and watch the video and watch the catch dozens and dozens and dozens of times, like many of us have. It was really special to acknowledge that in that way and see it acknowledged by fans and prompted to do so, to just have it so organic in the moment.
To have been there for that game on Tuesday would have been something amazing enough. And like you said, the conversation turns a little bit to, oh, he is here, he is part of this. What was some of the other reaction that you were able to suss out from the players who were able to be part of that? Because there's one thing to play in a historic venue and to do something cool, but when it came as part of this wider recognition of the history of the Negro Leagues, the life and times of Willie Mays, all of that, the impact is so much greater. What else did you get as a sense of appreciation from the players who were in that game between the Biscuits and the Barons?
Yeah, it seems like everybody who experienced the game in both clubhouses was like, this needs to happen more often, to be honest with you. And we're hopeful that it will. I mean, we've covered the minor leagues between the three of us for several decades at this point. And we all remember the Rickwood Classic and how that was a pretty big day on the minor league calendar. It stopped in 2019. We had the pandemic in 2020, and we're still in some ways coming out of the pandemic, and it's been slow rolling. But part of it was to prepare for this week. And this wasn't a dress rehearsal for future Rickwood classes. This was the game that will set the standard moving forward. We'll see if Major League Baseball goes back, but I see no reason why the Barons can't be playing there every year, and bring back the Rickwood Classic and have more teams and more players and more generations of players get to feel that weight of wearing a Birmingham Black Barons jersey, knowing that that's the jersey that Willie Mays dreamed in. And in many ways saw his dream through. I mean, like I said, he grew up hoping to play for the Black Barons. That team had been going for decades by the time he put on a jersey in 1948 and helped them to the Negro League World Series. For others to feel that is so important. And even if it becomes like rote or normal for the rest of us, like, oh, it's another Rickwood Classic, those players only get to play in that game once or twice. Hopefully only once. Hopefully they're moving up to AAA and making the majors and not staying in the Southern League for years and years. But everybody we talked to and heard from is like, this feels like a once in a lifetime opportunity, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. If Rickwood can continue to be a mecca for baseball, hopefully this is just the beginning. And with all the renovations, I mean, I don't see any reason why it has to just be a one-off. I think, there are going to be high school teams playing in there. There are going to be local college teams playing in there. There might even be future. We heard from, the Friends of Rickwood that college baseball conferences want to have their tournaments there, which would be amazing and so good. But I want minor league baseball especially to continue to have a home in Rickwood.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. I mean, Chris Young was on the MLB Network broadcast of the minor league game, and he was like, yeah, I played in the Rickwood Classic in 2005. Back then, the jerseys were wool, and they actually wore the authentic jerseys. So he was saying that the players today are lucky. But so many people, along with him, noted that there was this game for years here at Rickwood. And one of the Cardinals players, I believe, said that like they had a teammate, or they've had teammates play in the Rickwood Classic, but they never got to, and they were jealous. And like, it was just a nice reminder that like this has been something that, parts of baseball have celebrated, and, minor league baseball and the Barons and the Southern League, did have an event going, and this just only takes that to the next level. And even just in our recent history, Rickwood is a part of that.
One thing that really stood out from yesterday in the big league game between the Giants and Cardinals, and obviously was such an incredible recollection of so many stories, of so many lives, of so many chapters in baseball history. And we got to see, some really amazing stuff. You had a 99-year-old former Birmingham Black Baron, former St. Louis Cardinal, and Bill Greason, who threw out the first pitch, and he was led to the mound by Willie McGee, the 1985 National League MVP, a Cardinals legend and a current Cardinals coach. There were a lot of former Negro Leagues players there. Members of Negro Leagues players' families were there. And this has been a transformative time. The Negro Leagues now, of course, rightly recognized as major leagues, not only in name, but statistically as well. But there are things that need to be acknowledged that are not just looking through the soft filter and the sepia tones of, oh, look at where we are. We're in a historic place. And this is not the field of dreams for a lot of people. And the person who most clearly brought that to light was Reggie Jackson. And Reggie Jackson told stories last night on Fox about the discrimination and the outright virulent racism that he faced playing in Birmingham as a young kid. In 1967, he played there for the Birmingham A's, 114 games, 4 years after the 4 young girls were killed at the 16th Street Baptist Church in the bombing by the Ku Klux Klan. That year was the year in which white and black players were allowed to play baseball on the same field for the first time legally in the history of the state. That was outlawed until 4 years before Reggie Jackson got there in 1967. And he said, it's not easy for me coming back here. And it was really, for me, one of the most moving things about last night was listening to Reggie Jackson tell those stories, because it is not enough to just say, oh, this was a great place for Willie Mays and for black baseball and blah, blah, blah. It was, but it was that way because they were kept out of playing in the American League and the National League for so long. And that stuff needs to be discussed too, because we're not doing the justice of honoring history and telling these stories and discussing them in full context unless you acknowledge the things like Reggie Jackson acknowledged. And I think furthermore, it's a point of recognition that, yes, Jackie Robinson broke the American League color barrier in 1947. Reggie Jackson played in Birmingham in 1967 and still faced just as much abuse as Jackie Robinson would have. And that context and all of that acknowledgement was so important. And it really felt like Reggie Jackson lent a gravitas and a witnessing to the event last night that was extraordinarily important beyond just these are the Hall of Famers that we have who played here. These are the Negro Leagues players who are back here to observe this. We're honoring Willie Mays' life. There is so much more that needs to be put into all of that context. And it was really incredible seeing that from Reggie Jackson on the Fox set last night.
Yeah, I mean, I was really grateful for, him sharing his experience and hearing about that and being there to share it, right? Like that could have been something that we heard about 2 days later. Part of this whole trip for me, and Kelsie, you can speak to this as well, like at every stop, one thing that we learned about was just how teams, minor league teams, Major League Baseball as a whole, minor league baseball, are trying to incorporate education with entertainment. It is entertaining to watch a game in Rickwood, thinking about how Babe Ruth once played there and allegedly hit a baseball onto a train that then landed in Atlanta. It's entertaining to know that Red Jackson may have hit a ball that landed even further and in the same park. And like Ted Williams played there and Satchel Paige came through there. But also there's the education aspect of it. The whole reason this game exists is to learn more about our game and take that forward with us. So Reggie Jackson, I can look up his stats from the year, right? And just be like, oh, he had a pretty good year in Birmingham and then got called up to the A's. It was one of those times where somebody got called up straight from AA. Like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Good for him. And then he had a great major league career. So obviously Birmingham was important. I can look up those numbers, but being in that place and being like, no, this is what actually happened beyond the numbers. And, I've been writing up a diary, essentially like journal entries about what we've learned at each spot and who we talked to. And the thing I keep coming back to is like one of the big stories of the summer in baseball, obviously, is how Negro League stats are now acknowledged as Major League stats. And I see Major League lowercase, and they're included in the record books now. And Josh Gibson taking over for highest average and knocking off Ty Cobb and stuff like that. But it's not just the numbers. That's where it starts. And that's what the committee said when they were putting this together. Like, we understand that stats are good and they help tell stories, but it's the stories that matter from there. So Reggie Jackson taking that ball and running with it and forcing everybody to acknowledge, like, hey, thankfully I had teammates around me and I had a manager around me who were supportive and, made sure we were eating in restaurants and that made us feel welcome, or at least served us. And we stayed in hotels that at least allowed us to sleep there, because I was so angry. I would have been, if there's a chance that I would have been angry enough to attack the people, and then that would not have ended well for me. And that would have been honestly a completely justified reaction on his part. Like, there's no way any of us can say it wouldn't be, for somebody to judge you based off the color of your skin like that and treat you differently explicitly because of the color of your skin. So, hearing those stories and then hearing about the Negro Leaguers who were like, hey man, we were not defined by segregation. We were defined by wanting to play baseball. That's another education point of this. We look at it so much like, well, this is where just the black people played. It's like they were really, really good. Willie Mays was really, really good and had to be in a separate league, but they did it because they loved the game. There was a love for baseball in all of these cities. Even if they were segregated, they were the ones driving. Black Barons, when Willie Mays was there, were out. They had more fans per game than the Southern League team did, than the white team did, because people got so excited for baseball in the black communities there. And to see Willie Mays, people of all color wanted to see Willie Mays, who was that good, and that helped make the game better. These were education opportunities. And I hope people who watch the game, ourselves included, who were there, who got to experience it, run with this for, let's continue with this. It doesn't stop just because we had one Rickwood game. You think about like how there's a bigger appetite for Negro League stories now than there ever was before. And that doesn't have to necessarily stop with integration. There should be a hunger for stories from the 50s, 60s. More Reggie Jackson stories are out there, and not just from Reggie Jackson, from players of all types.
Yeah, definitely. And education, even for ourselves. I mean, this is definitely the work trip that I've learned the most on. It was almost like a field trip in some senses, like when you're a kid and you go to a museum or, but we were able to ask questions and be a part of it. I mean, I get it. We're two white millennials. Like, what do we know? So like we were quiet a lot. We were asking questions and we were letting people talk and learning. I mean, like Tyler said, just because Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier doesn't mean that then segregation was solved. Like, often we heard that these players, could play with white people, but they couldn't eat at the same restaurant, or they couldn't go to the hotel, so they had to sleep in their bus. And it's just like so many extra layers of struggle and conflict that they had to deal with, and oftentimes had to turn the other cheek while also being at the highest level of competition. We talk a lot about athletes, and these colleges now have these beautiful rec centers for their athletes to make it the perfect environment, and they have an easy workload, and like they're just got everything going their way so that all they can focus on is football or basketball or baseball or whatever. And like this is just the complete opposite. Like they had everything thrown at them, and yet you get Satchel Paige, who is arguably the greatest pitcher of all time, and Josh Gibson, and just all of these people who I'm sure for some it fueled them, for others it was a detriment, but either way, like they still put out this baseball product because, like Sam said, they loved it. And so it was just really interesting to learn about it kind of deeper. I think that we all have heard about the Negro Leagues, and we all know about the Monarchs, and I have this Indianapolis Clowns hat only because I'm kind of afraid of clowns, and former podcast host Jake Seiner thought it'd be funny to buy it for me. And that's a stupid reason to own a piece of Negro Leagues merchandise. But, now I know about the Indianapolis Clowns more. Now I know that Hank Aaron played with them, and Tony Stone and other women played for them. And like they were helping women in that sense too. And so like, it's just the opportunity for me to learn and for fans to learn, and everyone else has been a major part of this week, and it's been great. And it's really cool to see teams, major league and minor league teams and cities, help kids get to learn too, because that is such a big thing. And that's something that so many people said, like, oh, they watched Willie Mays growing up, saw black guys succeed, and they thought they could do it. And I think we need to continue telling those stories to help, more black kids want to play baseball.
Representation is so incredibly important, and you look in the stands last night and you see black families from the Birmingham area who were there and watching something that I would assume most people never thought they would see in their own hometown. Oh, they're going to bring a big league game here to this 115-year-old ballpark. Just an incredible night for baseball. Rickwood Field, not just a place for Negro Leagues history, it's a place for history of the suffrage movement in 1915. The Alabama Equal Suffrage Association hosted a suffrage day at Rickwood Field as part of a Birmingham Barons game to try to, enable women to have the right to vote. It is a civil rights site in America as much as anything else. And just an incredible place that tells so many stories that are beyond just the limits of baseball alone. And an amazing night last night for Major League Baseball, and a pretty cool time for people to be able to learn about, the thing that baseball has that no other sport has is its history. Other sports have their own history, but baseball's history is the story of America as much as it is the story of a sport. And baseball has that over everything else. And I think it's a tremendous kudos to leadership in Major League Baseball that these things are big time decisions, big time events, big time topics now of how do we honor that history and the legacy of the pioneers that have gone through really difficult roads to make not just the current state of Major League Baseball, but really a lot of the current landscape of American society, what it is today. And I mean that in a positive way, because I know that there is a lot that isn't necessarily feeling that way for so many people, but the struggles and the sacrifices and the fights that people went through to accomplish these things and to break down these walls and to cross over barriers is pretty incredible. And an amazing night last night at Rickwood Field, an amazing week this week for the history of baseball. And one final topic that I want to just bring up from last night, they did ask Barry Bonds, the all-time home run king, that if he were to face Satchel Paige, what would the outcome be? And Barry Bonds said, gone. Derek Jeter asked him, I think, and he said, are you kidding me, Jeter? Of course I'm going to take him yard. I got Satchel Paige in that matchup, man. I know, like, that dream things, watching Barry Bonds against Satchel Paige would be, like, at the top of my list. But I don't know. Satchel Paige didn't get beat much you know?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, now I'm putting on a scouting hat, right? Where it is like, even in Bonds might be getting a hit 3 times, and you would say that's pretty good. If he batted career 300 off Satchel Paige, you'd be like, that's amazing. So just odds are 70% he's not getting a hit.
Right.
The way it's going to go.
Right.
Two, the stories of Satchel Paige are incredible. The way he used to warm up in between innings, he would be like aiming for gum wrappers. That's how pinpoint his control was. So he knew exactly where to throw the ball to get you out.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much just changing speeds, which it sounded like earlier in his career, as some people would put it, he had 3 pitches: fast, faster, and fastest. It wasn't like a changeup. It was,
but he had 17 different names for them.
Yeah, and later he developed like, more of a breaking pitch, and he had a knuckleball at one point, and he had the B ball, he had the wobbly ball, he
The
had
trouble ball.
Yeah,
Night Rider.
Midnight Rider, yeah, which was a lot of fun to see that at the Negro Southern League Museum. Highly recommend anybody going there if you have a chance and you're in Birmingham. They have I think Ben talked about this last year when he was at Birmingham. They have a Satchel Paige pitching simulator, which is a series of lights. So you are 60 feet 6 inches, and you press a button and you say, I want to see what the Midnight Rider looks like. And then this like hologram starts to throw the ball, and you see it come at you, either quick or like you see the movement on it. It's very cool. But yeah, so anyway, so just numbers alone would obviously favor Paige. I would say the way he would approach you would probably get you out too. Like if Barry Bonds fouled the ball off, the at-bat's done. Because I think Satchel Paige would know exactly from there. That's all the information he needs.
Yeah, he only needs to see one swing, and then he's going to exploit everything that he can in your swing path to get you out.
The other thing I will say, though, is that Barry Bonds had maybe one of the best eyes we've ever seen in the game. Ted Williams is obviously up there, had like 20/10 vision. Bob Kendrick was talking about this of the Negro League Museum in Kansas City last night, that Josh Gibson allegedly had the power of Babe Ruth and the eyes of Ted Williams. I would put Barry Bonds right up there, right? He set the career mark for MLB for walks. Part of that is guys didn't want to pitch to him because he was so good, but also he could see, even if Satchel Paige's control was so good, he would probably have a pretty good idea of where it was going and whether to swing or not. It would be fascinating to me. The thing I will say this: Satchel Paige, and Barry brought this up briefly, Satchel Paige, if he was so confident that he was going to get strikeouts, and often he would tell his fielders, go sit down. You're not needed this inning. Like, just go sit. It's fine. I'm going to take care of it. 1, 2, 3, done. Strike out. Like I said, all I need is a catcher.
You get to play that in MLB The Show, last year's version, where after every out, Satchel calls somebody else off the field and tells them to leave. And first it's the outfielders, then it's the infielders, and then he finally gets the third out just alone. But yeah, he reportedly did that multiple times and did it for the first time the Denver Post baseball tournament, which was the first major integrated baseball tournament in the country. Somebody a player from the Coors Brewing Company team yelled out some nonsense at Satchel Paige and then proceeded to reach base via an infield single on a little dribbler up the line. So the next time he saw him, he just called everybody off the field and struck the dude out on 3 pitches. And the funny thing was, Bob Kendrick told a story about Satchel Paige facing Willie Mays. Willie Mays ambushed, I think, the first pitch and doubled off of Satchel Paige. Satchel Paige then proceeded to say to his third baseman, let me know when that kid's coming up again. And as Willie Mays approached the plate, he said, I'm going to give you 3 pitches and you're going to go sit down. And struck him out on 3 pitches. And I believe Willie Mays told the story that once Satchel delivered the third pitch, he was already walking to the dugout before Mays had swung through it. And he said, all right, go sit down, kid.
Yeah. I mean, what I was going to say is, like, I don't think fielders would be needed because, Willie Mays at 17 years old ambushing Paige and getting a double. I think Barry Bonds ambushing it and swinging with all his might, it's going over the fence. If he doesn't foul it off, it's going 500 feet. That is power on power. Yeah.
The 2 true outcomes would be that game.
Probably. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. There would be no walking, even in Barry Bonds, but it would be a homer or a strikeout. I feel pretty confident in that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Negro Leagues tribute is the main thing, and Willie Mays and all that's the most important. But on a smaller note, I thought it was really nice to just see minor league baseball kind of get a stage. Be on MLB Network on Tuesday and see Chandler Simpson get a lot of attention for how good he's doing. They even had a graphic that, as Sam noted, not only was his average in stolen bases leading the minors, but also the majors. And obviously it's harder to compare those type of stats, but it was really cool to hear them talk about first half clinchers on MLB Network, because that's something that we care about in our small little bubble, but isn't necessarily a big thing. So I really appreciate at least just the minor leagues also getting a little bit of a promotion, along with the most important part being the Negro Leagues. But in general, it was a great time. But I think that the biggest reminder I got, though, is I think Major League Baseball and Fox and all the leagues and ESPN and all that stuff do a great job celebrating legends during jewel events. This is a jewel event. The All-Star Game, the draft, the World Series are jewel events. And also when a player passes, we do a great job celebrating them. But I think that this has just reminded me that we should be telling these stories when players are alive, when it's the off season, or May, like when there's not a big game going on. Like, we can tell these amazing Willie Mays stories. We can celebrate living legends, and I think that that's something that I want to try to start doing more of, and not just wait for a big game or when they pass away.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big questions this week afterwards has been, who is the greatest living player in Major League, from Major League Baseball, currently out there. And I think that's okay, that like we can have that debate, but like let's have it in a way that makes sure that the people in that conversation, whether it's Ricky Henderson or Mike Schmidt or Barry Bonds himself, Roger Clemens, like all these guys, we can have a healthy debate about it, but like let's make sure these guys know that
Yeah.
that they are part of this history. I have no doubt in my mind Willie Mays knew that before he went. I don't think Willie Mays died knowing or doubting what history. But as good as he was, and I agree, like if I had this thought the other day, if you were going to do a draft of all-time major league players, I would probably take Willie Mays first because of that five-tool talent, just knowing that he could do everything well for you. But as good as he was, there are other guys out there who reached similar heights. And there's going to be so many more opportunities to tell this, not just in the South, but out West or in the Northeast or in the Midwest. Anywhere baseball is touched has a story like this. And I think that's one thing we learned, right, Kelsie, like going to Daytona Beach and finding that's where Jackie Robinson debuted in the minor leagues, and getting a video of him debuting. That was amazing that happened. We go to Jacksonville, and we know the Jumbo Shrimp are there, and they were just wearing a Red Caps jersey the night before to honor their Negro League history. And right up the road is JP Small Park, which it used to exist as a Negro Leagues facility and is currently undergoing a renovation. Maybe that could have a Rickwood style game at some point. Go to Mobile. We talked to Cleon Jones, the Mets legend, the guy who caught the final out of the 1969 World Series. In 1969, 4 of the top 7 vote getters in the National League were all from the Mobile area. Willie McCovey, Hank Aaron, Cleon Jones, Tommy Agee. That's incredible. And he brought that
That's
up.
amazing.
He was like, nobody talks about that. Like and on the All-Star team that year, there were 3 guys from Mobile in the starting lineup: Cleon, Hank Aaron, Willie McCovey. Willie McCovey homered twice in that game. Reggie Jackson was talking about that actually last night. He brought up the 1969 World All-Star game, and he said Willie McCovey hit 2 shots over my head. That game had 3 guys from Mobile in the starting lineup.
Not to mention, Mobile is not a real big place either. Mobile, I think nowadays is under 200,000 people.
Right. And one thing Cleon Jones is trying to do is build what they're calling Heroes Plaza. Now, ground has been broken there, and there are going to be statues of the 5 Hall of Famers from Mobile that future generations can look at, because growing up for him, Satchel Paige was from Mobile. He was the guy that you heard at every street corner was a different Satchel Paige story. Here's where he did this. Here's where he did that. That field is where he sat down, these local legends. And then you're like, okay, so if that can happen here, I can do it. And that's how Hank Aaron starts. And that's how Cleon Jones starts. And that's how Tommy Agee starts. And at some point in the mid 80s, baseball started to fall off. Well, now if we have these statues in these places, prominent places, maybe those dreams can start anew for guys who are, for young kids, especially black kids coming up, to see the 5 Hall of Famers are Satchel Paige, Hank Aaron, Willie McCovey, Billy Williams, and Ozzie Smith. I mean, those are 5 absolute legends. Those are not guys who squeaked into Cooperstown, and they all came from that area. That's another way of like, let's make sure these future generations know these stories and know that these things are possible in your backyard.
It is a really exciting time for baseball in so many ways, and what a week. And a huge thanks to you two for sharing your stories from this week. We got so much more coming up on this week's episode of the show before the show, but excited to have gotten your perspective from down there.
Thanks for having us. It was a great trip. Sam and I survived another road trip, so that's always good. And we learned a lot. So thank you for having me.
All right, Sam, what do we got coming up?
Yeah, so as part of this trip, we went to Jacksonville, like I said, and we stopped by 121 Financial Ballpark, home of the Jumbo Shrimp. They were home that day on Sunday. We kind of lucked out in that regard, so everybody was kind of getting ready for the game. But we reached out to general manager of Jacksonville, Harold Craw, just to talk to him a little bit about how they are honoring the Negro Leagues. And he's had a real detailed history of minor league baseball with stops in Johnson City, Quad Cities, Charleston, his hometown Chattanooga. And at every stop, it sounded like he picked up a little bit more about that region's history, specifically with their ties to the Negro Leagues. He's made a lot of friends with Negro Leaguers over the years. So we wanted to talk to him about that and just what he's gathered from that and how he's bringing it to Jacksonville and how, the expansion of history in Jacksonville, what that can mean for that community. So here's us talking to Harold Craw.
Okay, so first, just introduce yourself and say what you do.
Harold Craw, CRAW, Executive Vice President and General Manager with the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp.
And last night, I know you had your Negro League celebration. What was that like, and how long have you been doing that?
Yeah, so we started it here in 2017, was our first year. And last night was fantastic. It's one of, I think that was the second time that we've actually gotten through the night and haven't been affected by good old Mother Nature. So in both of those times, we had crowds, 7,000 plus. It was just a fantastic night. A great opportunity to give some information on the history of baseball, just in general, as it pertains to the Negro Leagues, and then to highlight Jacksonville in a couple ways, kind of throughout the night. So that was awesome. And even better, or topping on the cake, was the fact that the Indianapolis Indians were in town, and of course played as the Indianapolis Clowns.
How do you feel like the community embraces the educational aspect of that when you have a Red Caps night?
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. I don't know that, or maybe I took for granted how cool it would be, or how much people would think about this is something that is the history of Jacksonville and that we should recognize it. And I think I noticed it even more the first year we played. Obviously, it was a big deal. It was fantastic. It went well. But I believe the questions about, hey, when are you guys going to wear those jerseys again? Hey, tell me about this. And then our opportunity to continuously grow that year over year, not just during our baseball season, but we actually have another pretty big event that happens in February here that we titled the High School Heritage Classic of Jacksonville. It's a pretty big deal for us. There's 2 traditionally African-American high schools that have some baseball players that folks might know probably more in other sports. They have of all sports, but one of the guys that I know from having worked in minor league baseball is Vince Coleman. So he played for Raines High School. So it's William Raines High School and Jean Ribault High School. And they play against each other normally here on our field. And so the 2 high school teams will play both in Red Caps uniforms, home and away uniforms. And then we give away a trophy to the winner of the game, known as the A. Philip Randolph Cup. So A. Philip Randolph was a huge civil rights guy that really fought a lot and did some pretty impressive things as well. And so it's been a great couple years. I think for me, the hook, line, and sinker for the game was the opportunity to have it play as almost like an education day. If you think about minor league baseball, and so we bring kids, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders out, and we pack the stadium, and then we are able to educate them about the history of the Negro Leagues, and then for some of the young men that might continue to play baseball or start playing baseball because they came to the game, an opportunity if they go to Reigns or Reebok to potentially play on the field at some point as they're growing up. So that's a pretty big deal for us, and it's been exciting to watch the game grow.
Is there anything you've learned from your time doing these Red Caps games?
Yeah, I mean, I think just engaging with guys that have played in the Negro Leagues, it's just how humble they, are, and for those that have passed, they were, about their experience. Knowing that it was difficult, knowing that it was hard, I believe that they loved the game so much that they would just do, whatever it took to be successful. I think that's probably the thing that I've tried to take through my career, is to try to be humble and appreciative of the opportunities that you're given as well. And so, but from the baseball side and the history side, in different cities, you get to hear pretty cool stories from guys that played or guys that had that experience. A gentleman I know, I have to tell this story. His name's Buster Hare, Harold Hare. He told a story about being young and going and watching games at Durkeeville, pre-integration, and said that they would go, him and his friends when they were young, teenagers, preteens, they would go climb in the trees that hang over the field and they would watch the games. And inevitably, at some point during the game, someone would see them from the stands, let the local authorities know, and they would have to jump down out of the trees and run back in to the housing developments there as well. But that just speaks directly to the love of the game and how much and how bad you want to be able to see that game. Luckily for him, Buster had an opportunity to play in the Negro Leagues a little bit professionally in Canada before he had an injury and had to come home.
Do you know how to spell Buster's last name?
Haire.
There we go.
Harold Hare.
And we were talking about this before, but your stops between Charleston, Quad Cities, Chattanooga here, what other Negro Leaguers did you get to hear from and pass along their stories?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic gentlemen. Two of my, I would call closest friends. Carl Long that played for the Birmingham Black Barons, 51 through 53. He was actually an All-Star, I think in 53. I don't think they verified it. That's a guess, but I know he was an All-Star. And then Clifford Layton, who was a left-handed pitcher that pitched for the New York Black Yankees. Man, both just great guys. I mean, Carl has a huge history and his family outside of the baseball industry, and being able to meet both of those guys and honestly become friends to where we just would talk on the phone, or they would check in on me and I would check in on them. Both have since passed. I miss those guys, miss talking to them, but it's pretty cool. I still actually talk to Carl's son on a regular basis, and his grandson, as of I think it was 3 to 4 months ago, had committed to play for Southern Miss. We'll see how it turns out, because I know DJ's a fantastic ball player. So who knows?
Wow, that's so cool that generations apart, you still can form these bonds just over baseball with them.
Yeah, it's just chatting, right? It's about life. A lot of it had to come from, I think, and this comes from conversations with them, having the opportunity to see another African American gentleman on the executive side of the business, I believe, was a sense of pride for them. I don't know. I don't want to speak for either one of those guys. I think it was a sense of pride. And so, we would just talk about different things. I mean, a lot of times it was life. A lot of times, how are your kids doing? They met my kids, have pictures of them, holding my little one. I remember DJ when he was about this big, coming to games when I was, in Charleston, working in Charleston. So And I just think that it was an opportunity for them to maybe have a little piece still of the game. Selfishly for me, it was a way to just get some wisdom. Like, what did you deal with? How did you deal with that? Or during your tough times, like, what did you use? How did you use it? How did you get through those experiences? So, yeah, man, miss those dudes, and they're honestly some of the most ridiculous stories that I've ever heard as well. A pretty cool time in chat when I was in Chattanooga. Had a chance to bring them. That's my hometown, and so I had a chance to bring them in to my hometown, which I had wanted to do forever. And we did the whole circuit. I took them where I played baseball. We talked to some kids there. We met some other people in the city, and we did that whole thing. And I took them down to historic Ingalls Stadium. And so we were going to do some interviews at the stadium. And so we pull up, we park. The stadium's not being used at all. It's just the stadium now. And so we pull up, we park, we walk to the front gates. And as the ladies coming to open the gates so we can go in, they both stop. And Carl stops and he closes his eyes and he just starts to stand there. And I'm like, Carl, what is going on? And he was like, the jingling. I'm like, what? He said right here was like a coin pot that people would toss change in. And I just remember the jingling from walking through, and I got chill bumps now. But when I was like, whoa. And so you think about that, and that was kind of one of those experiences that I'll keep with me forever. I mean, they just both stopped, stone cold. I was like, what is happening right now? And then it was crazy just to hear some of those and them remembering playing at that bar. It's my hometown, so that was really cool for me. Really cool for me.
You thought you were showing the side of yourself to them. You ended up showing the side of them. So.
Man, that was really cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned you asked them about like advice or what words stick with them to help them get through all of that. Is there anything that you carry with you as advice?
Yeah, I mean, mine is one of perseverance, right? You see what they did on the field, you see what they became in life and how they are paying it forward. And so anybody that I can give advice to is to persevere, right? Baseball is a game of failure. You learn a lot, whether it's on the field or off the field. And so perseverance is the way that I think ultimately you can be successful long term in life. It's something I try to preach into my kids on a daily basis. And hopefully they listen a little bit when they're not being stubborn.
You also said, you didn't want to speak for them, but you felt like them seeing you in a position of power on the executive side meant something. Is that something you hear a lot in the community, being an African American man in this position, which is, is a rarity in baseball right now?
Yeah, I think, and I hate to talk about myself. I think it's more, I think I notice it more now than I did before. I was just trying to do good work and trying to get more youth involved in the game and hopefully bring forth the next group of executives, hopefully the next, general manager of a minor league club. And not really thinking about it in that way. It's people that I've engaged with that are friends of mine or that are in business that I see here and there that say, man, like, it's really special. You need to speak more about, what you do and who you are, because I think that's important for our kids to know and can see. So I'm trying to be a little more open about that as well. So it's tough. When you're one of one, it's tough. So it's always a challenge.
Fair enough. And just picking up what we were talking about before with JP Small and just the importance of that building, not only to Jacksonville, but just baseball history. How are the Jumbo Shrimp trying to, work with the future of that place? Yeah,
so selfishly, I have a friendship with the head baseball coach at Edward Waters University. They actually play at JP Small's ballpark. It's Hank Aaron Field now. This has been recently named. JP Small's ballpark. And so right now there's a renovation project going on to actually make the field turf so they can play there, as well as a local high school, Stanton High School, which also has a history in the community as well. And so we want to help them get going. They actually play a game with us every year where we bring in another college and they play here on our field. But more so, like, if there's an opportunity for us to be able to take what we do, or even potentially, I'm sure, far in the future, to be able to play a game there and just engage that local community and what we could bring, I think that would be fantastic. There's so many stories, I'm sure, that folks who have lived there or parents or grandparents have lived there that they could tell about the field being used and how it got used, and then honestly, who played there. I think that'd be really cool. So, yeah, I hope that happens in the future sometime. But I'm just excited to see the field complete, looking great, and having the community be able to use it. EWU, who continuously wins championships, baseball championships, but then also stay in high school, because it's good to see those kids play out there.
And since you did come from out of town and moved here, what were kind of the first things you learned or heard about JP Small?
Yeah, I met a gentleman that was trying to bring some notoriety to who JP Smalls was. And then that encouraged me to go and visit the Durkeeville Museum. And so when I went to visit the museum, I met a great guy by the name of Lloyd Washington. And so I got to tour the museum that day, and then just have known Lloyd from coming to the game, from him joining us on our individual nights. And so I didn't know the history that was here. And so that was very fun for me. I also met another gentleman who took me to a lunch spot, no longer still in business, in Durkeeville, where I had the opportunity to sit down with, I think there was 6 gentlemen, African-American gentlemen. Had no idea who any of these gentlemen were, and I just sat there and they just talked for an hour. They talked about everything from who was the best basketball team in town when they were younger, to who played where from a baseball standpoint. They talked about a huge track event that we have here in town. That's a big deal. And from that, I didn't realize that the head of the table was Buster Hare. That was how we first met.
And now it's full.
And so that was cool, and that was a great experience for me. And I think I left and I called my dad immediately, and I said, Dad, like, the history here is just ridiculous. I mean, not just in sports, but just in general, like baseball, it doesn't matter, basketball, track, like just history. Like it was an amazing thing. And so that was my first entree into Jacksonville, and I just continue to learn and meet fantastic people that are here.
And one thing that kind of stands out from all these stories that you're telling is where education meets excitement and trying to get those two things to combine. How do you do that from your seat as a GM?
Yeah, be purposeful about it. I'm a big proponent of education in general. I'm a former school teacher. I taught physical education and health. I'm a former school teacher. But I thought it was important. I mean, school is important for me. It's important for my kids. And so I feel like for us, there's a great opportunity for us to engage of all ages. And so when we can offer an opportunity to come here, people think for fun. But then when we have an opportunity to educate while they're here, that's a big deal. But even more, how do we go back in to each one of our schools in our area with a purpose, right? And so anytime that we can go to a career day, if I have the availability, I go, because I think that's important. There's a few specific schools that I prefer to go to, so some of the young men can see me and see what we're doing here. So yeah, man, that's a big deal. And then we try to do as much as we can here by using the stadium or working with our teachers or recognizing our teachers, because I think that's a big deal also. But yeah, education is a huge deal. So we try to do it every single day in some form, but there's a few days a year, specifically in stadium, or when we have the opportunity to go out to be able to do that we try to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I see even just this bobblehead right here seems like a good example of bringing the history into a fun thing.
You want to hear another crazy story?
Of course.
So we were having, each February during Black History Month, we do a couple of events. The Heritage Classic is one, but we also do a movie night. And so each movie night, we always show some type of African-American focused, if you want to call it that, film, right? We've done everything from, obviously we showed 42 one year. We showed Red Tails another year. That's where this meeting happened. We did year 1, especially because my daughter's favorite Disney princess is Tiana. We showed the Princess and the Frog, so that was a big deal. But on the night, we were engaging specifically with Red Tails and the Tuskegee Airmen, with some folks that had families that were, lineages of guys that were part of Tuskegee Airmen. And so we just invited them out and we were hosting them in a suite. And so just happened to be having a conversation, ironically, our senior director of promotions happened to be having a conversation in the suite with a guy. And he was like, hey man, my granddad played, for the Red Caps. He was like, huh? And so began to talk. This gentleman's name is Joe Watts. Well, what we didn't know is Joe is a fantastic singer. And so we began to engage and talk. And so when we invited him out to sing the national anthem, he sang, and then we continued to engage with him and found out, who his family was, and that it was, Charles Harris, who played, for the Red Caps a little bit and a couple of other clubs as well. And so we thought, well, this is the perfect opportunity, which was a couple of years ago, perfect opportunity to do something as a giveaway on Negro League Baseball night. And we figured we'd get the approval of the family, and we did a Charles Harris bobblehead. And so it's funny how things just come full circle as well. And so that was our opportunity to link the past with the present through just a random meeting that happened in a suite.
Sounds like every year there's like something more you're learning about just the history of Jacksonville baseball.
Yeah, I feel like it's every time we have an event that's unique, that focuses on, in the African American community, I learn or meet or run into somebody that, I never had the chance to meet before. Last night we had about 40 former semi-pro play college ball, many of them at Florida A&M, that I just wanted to go up and say hello. I got a text message from a friend of mine, Reggie Lucas, who is the nephew of Bill Lucas, who worked with the Braves. And so we had became friends over an event that we did a couple years ago that we were working on together. And he said, come up and, say hello. So I went up to say hello and then began meeting some of the guys that played semi-pro ball. Met a guy that actually played minor league baseball, that actually played in the old stadium before it was here, but just across, our old stadium was built just across the parking lot from our new stadium. So had played here in the past, and former guys and former baseball coach and athletic director of Raines High School, Rudy LeCount. So, it's just, you meet guys and then they talk about where they played and what they did and where it went on, and even if they were essentially barnstorming or even just playing semi-pro in their different leagues, communities and neighborhoods actually had leagues here, and they would meet in different areas and actually play ball. And so hearing some of those stories is pretty impressive. So that happened last night, which I thought was cool. Talking to some of those guys, I got chill bumps just hearing some of their stories because it's pretty cool.
And then what's the reactions from the community, from the fans who show up?
Yeah, I think it's they're excited. I probably see more, every year see more Red Caps, I say stuff, whether it's something that we've given away or that they've purchased in the store out in the community. And so I think that it continues to grow each year, that we do more and more things with it as well, and how we take it out in the community. So I feel like it's been well received as well. So, and I just think it's always good to kind of reach back in your history and pull some things forward. We focus on this, and then we have a couple of other things that we'll do each year to reach back in our past, as we know that everything that we were doing moving forward was built on a phenomenal foundation that was here before we got here. So we just try to build on that.
Hello, this is Ben Hill, aka Ben's Biz. Ben's Biz on the road right now in Memphis, Tennessee, at a hotel right across the street from AutoZone Park, home of the Memphis Redbirds, AAA affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals. Whew. All right, I'm going to have to talk faster. This has been an action-packed couple days. I'm here to update all of you show before the show listeners on my road trip. Wasn't able to schedule a time on this trip to speak with Sam and Tyler, who are both very busy men themselves. So just talking alone in a hotel room with ridiculousness on mute I don't think I've ever seen ridiculousness outside of a hotel room on a road trip, but it always seems to be on. And I have thoughts on that show, but that's neither here nor there. This road trip started in Rome, Georgia, home of the recently rebranded Rome Emperors, who of course used to be the Braves. They are the Atlanta Braves High A affiliate. I got there on Tuesday, and this is my first time at the ballpark in 10 years. The ballpark's around 20 years old, and looked about the same as when I had first been there, but of course they changed their name to the Emperors, so you see a lot of signs related to that new branding, and the penguin logo, the penguin / mascot is named Julius. Got there, and what did I do in Rome? Man, I'm telling you, it's been a long couple days. I did a lot. First of all, they asked me to throw out a first pitch, and I almost said no, because that's what I've been saying the last 4 seasons on the road, is that I retired from first pitches. But on this road trip, as with the last one, on several of the stops, I'm joined by an MLB content creator to do photos and videos with me, and that's turned into little road trip recap videos. And so I thought, it's all about the content. We live for content. So I threw out a first pitch, and of course it was a perfect strike. My catcher was Julius, the Emperor Penguin mascot, and he dropped the ball. I would actually charge him with a pass ball, but my pitch was perfect. And I think I'm back in the first pitch game, folks. I really think I am, but that's neither here nor there. I spoke before the game with the Rome Emperor's PA announcer, LG for real on Twitter. His name's Larry. I'm not remembering his last name right now, but super nice guy, gregarious guy. As soon as you hear him, you know why he is a PA announcer. He actually went viral applying to be with his submission video for the Atlanta Braves job when that became open. And he went viral, and for that won the fan vote. Didn't ultimately get picked, but he lives near Rome, and the team called him up and said, hey, you didn't get the Braves job. Come do it for the Emperors. And he said ultimately that's probably a good thing. Of course, he was disappointed he didn't get the Braves job, but he acknowledged he didn't really have professional experience, so he's getting that experience now in Rome and has big plans for the future. So stay tuned for more from LG for real, Larry. LG number 4 real on Twitter. Super nice guy, great guy to talk to. My designated eater was a listener of this program and a longtime minor league baseball supporter, big-time hat enthusiast, Patrick Larson. He was treated to a variety of items in a suite that the team had set aside. I think the favorite item was the Brutus Burger, which is double patty, which resulted in a lot of laborious jokes related to, et tu brute, et tu, 2 patties, et tu. Hey, I'm taking a stab at it. That's a joke we already used. Little assassination humor for you. But the Brutus Burger, double burger, bacon, some secret sauce, really good fried catfish patties, and nachos in a full-size, extreme nachos in a full-size Rome Emperor's helmet. It was really good stuff as well. Talked to some longtime fans, including Ernie, the K-Man. He has had some health issues in recent years, has Parkinson's disease, so he doesn't hang up the K signs at the ballpark for every strikeout, but talked to him and his wife Nancy, and always just great to talk to longtime supporters, and great to see him still out the game, despite his issues, supporting the team, and that's really what it's all about. Talk to other fans like that who were just so effusive about what that team meant to them. And I know that's a common story, an old story in a lot of ways, but it always makes me feel good about this job. Because like any job, you do it a long time, you can get cynical about certain things, but just talking to people on the road who really appreciate minor league baseball and what it means to their communities, just really helps me keep going as well, because I just see how important it is and reminded how important it is. And that's important. Can I say important one more time? Important. It's important work I'm doing here. Whew. So Rome Emperors. I'm sorry, it's been a long couple days. It's like midnight in this hotel room. I'm pacing around talking to myself. I'm watching some bloopers I should not even talk about on ridiculousness. They're a bit risque. I woke up in Rome, had a nice drive to, well, Rocket City, Madison, Alabama, Huntsville area. And that was an interesting drive. It was almost all on like pretty rural state routes. And for as much as I traveled, you'd think I'd have a better sense of like the routes I'm taking or where state borders are. I was surprised how quickly I got into Alabama on this drive. That from Rome, I was in Alabama within 20-25 minutes. The town of Fort Payne seemed interesting to me. And if I'd had more time, one of those theoretical trips I'll take one day where I can really be a tourist, I'd stop in Fort Payne and walk around that downtown. But anyway, good to be back in the Huntsville area. It felt very familiar to me between the Huntsville Stars and now the Rocket City Trash Pandas. I've probably been there 5 or 6 times over the last 15 plus years. And I was really glad I was able to add the Trash Pandas to this itinerary. They weren't originally on it, and I was there just 3 years ago, which the way I operate is the proverbial blink of an eye. But whereas that visit 3 years ago was just like, this is a new team, the Trash Pandas, AA affiliate of the Angels. Let's check out the ballpark, Toyota Field, and let's just talk about this new team. This time it was more the sense of, okay, they've been here for a couple years, and was able to talk again to a lot of fans and what it means to them 3-4 years in, just in terms of the routines they've settled into and things of that nature. Did not get to talk to Papa Panda, one of the big fans. I missed him, but talked to quite a few other ones. I wish I remembered some of their names right now. I wish I remembered a lot of other things. But the show must go on. Sophie Ballgame, another longtime Twitter supporter, designated eater, of course, with the Trash Pandas is really good food, interesting food. It can definitely be on the pricier side, which sometimes I lose sight of when I'm just getting stuff for free from the team or expensing it. But I really appreciate the creativity they put into it. One of the specials they had was s'more fries, which are sweet potato fries with s'more toppings on them, and it was put together pretty nicely. Rocket City hot chicken fries, Nashville style hot chicken, but that was on a bed of French fries, fried pickle chips, and mac and cheese. And also a specialty sausage, which is a Reuben style sausage. And Jesse, the grill master, talked the whole time about how he was putting together when he put it together. Put a video of that up on Twitter, and really appreciated Jesse and his enthusiasm. Really appreciated the hospitality of the Trash Pandas. My main point of contact was Rob Sternberg, who works in the control room. He's like the VP of upstairs operations. That's not his official title, but it was really helpful in getting things together. It was one of those games where I just looked up and bam, it's like the 6th or 7th inning. And it had only been like an hour, 15 minutes since the game started. Rome was like that too. That game was scoreless through 9 until a walk-off homer on the first pitch of the bottom of the 9th. So these games really fly by. You got to have a plan. You got to keep moving. And keep moving I did, from Rocket City to Memphis, a fairly long drive, almost entirely on Route 72, a state route. I enjoyed that as well. Every once in a while you go through a town or two, but it moved pretty quickly. I prefer to be off the interstates when possible. And got into Memphis this afternoon, checked into the hotel, walked across the street, went to the ballpark. Catherine, the content creator I'm working with, she was at Memphis again as she was in Rome 2 nights before, so great to work with her. Really excited to see the stuff that we get, pictures and video from working with someone. This is very new to me, being on the road with someone, helping me put stuff together. So it takes some adjustment, but I think it's a really good thing overall. So today Memphis started kind of slow. I was like, what am I doing? Who am I talking to? But then bam, the game started and went right into it. Talked to a fan, Kerry Clay. I was calling him Birdman because that's how he was referred to by some people in the front office. He's like, who's calling me Birdman? I'm just Kerry. But you could see why people might call him Birdman. He had a hat with all these red birds, cardinals clipped to his cap, a little plastic megaphone, which he would heckle the opposing team and cheer on the Redbirds. Really nice guy. Said he's in I don't want to say a biker gang, but a motorcycle club. And he's trying to get his buddies out to the game, and I agree. More motorcycle clubs at minor league baseball games. But Kerry Clay was a good guy to talk to. And at one point I was asked, hey, do you want to dance in a Dance Like a Chicken contest? And just like the first pitch 2 nights before, I was like, man, I thought I retired from that stuff. But again, it's about the content. With someone there being able to film, I said, okay, I'm back. The Al Pacino Godfather 3 cliche, just when I thought it was out, I was out. They pulled me back in. And here's the thing, I went out in the field against like 2 girls, I don't know, 12 preteens, teenagers, and I'm just thinking like, they're younger, people like kids to win, and we all just dance like chickens, and I just kind of went for it, but I didn't think I did like a particularly good job. So they're like, hey, who thinks the first girl did good or did the best? And people cheered, and then the second one, people cheered, and the third one, and I'm just expecting it to be kind of crickets, and bam, like the stadium explodes. And the whole rest of the night, no matter where I went, people were like, good job, that was awesome. And I was like, man, I'm back, baby. I think I'm back in the between inning contest game. Time to make a fool of myself again. I think with COVID, with MiLB taking over the minor leagues, with me turning 40 a few years back, with having a child, I just kind of got in this mode that like there's things maybe that I leave in the past, but you never really leave things in the past, do you? I'm back and I'm nailing it. Chicken dances at minor league baseball games. But we walked around with Craig Unger, the team's president for quite a long time, checking out some new parts of the ballpark. Got the full story on the Albert Pujols chair, which is in right field. It's funny because, well, first of all, the Albert Pujols chair, he never played a regular season game with the Redbirds, but in 2000 he was there for the playoffs, and he hit a 13th inning championship clinching home run. And the seat that it landed in is now just one lone red seat in a berm area. When he hit it, that was a whole section of seats, but they've since removed the seats and made it a berm. But then they GPS the location and put the seat back in the exact location. So now there's just this one red Pujols chair out there in the berm. And I think that's a pretty cool thing, pretty cool story. Designated eater, Joe Christie, came all the way from St. Louis, drove 4 hours up and back to do it. Good times with him. Of course, the famous thing there is the Rendezvous barbecue nachos, and those are classic, with the pulled pork and barbecue season from Rendezvous, the barbecue restaurant. Really good stuff. But you can also get a cheese and sausage plate, and it had some pickles and peppers in it. And you just don't. I remembered that from when I was in Memphis like 12 years ago, but I kind of forgot. And I was talking to Craig, the team president, later, and he said that's a Memphis thing. Whether you go to a real upscale restaurant or a local burger joint, you can just get these cheese and sausage plates. And the sausage in this case was kind of like a barbecue, style kielbasa, some barbecue sauce and seasoning, pepper jack cheese, cheddar. And Joe, the designated eater, was raving about it. And it's a real Memphis thing. And I think that's a pretty cool item. And, gluten-free too. I didn't eat any because that's a whole nother story on this trip I'm not getting into, but haven't had much of an appetite. But anyway, that was good. Barbecue nachos, sausage and cheese plate, a Memphis dog, which had kind of similar toppings to the barbecue nachos. But really good stuff there. They played the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. They won. Wilson Contreras was on a rehab. Jordan Walker, I believe, got a home run. Of course, I never really get to see too much of the game, but I do my best. And here it is. I've been talking for about 15 minutes. I'm doing my best. I'm sorry that I've left out people, left out key details, because I cannot believe I've only been on the road 3 days. Every day on the road is like 2 days in one. And I am just exhausted. But I hope you enjoyed this report. There will be more to talk about next week. Tomorrow, Friday, the day this podcast comes out. My goodness. Shout out to Sam and Tyler for getting the podcast out. And Sam Dykstra, Tyler for producing it, and Sam for doing all the legwork in terms of actually getting it posted. It's a lot of work. I appreciate it, guys. And I don't do much of that work. I'm the diva who just says, my voice is enough. But they're getting out there for you. And tomorrow, so if you're listening to this the day it comes out, Friday, I'm going to Little Rock, home of the Arkansas Travelers, first time since 2012, and then Saturday, also for the first time since 2012, Northwest Arkansas Naturals. And then I will fly back home on Sunday, and I'll have a lot to sort through in terms of material, photos and video recaps and articles and newsletter and more stuff on the podcast. And maybe I can take some of my individual interviews and run them on the podcast. It's a whole ramshackle content machine we've got going, and I hope people appreciate it. I guess the last thing I'll say, I've been hearing a lot on this road trip and recently people saying how much my work has inspired them or how much I mean to minor league baseball. And I guess that's true because I've been doing it for a long time, but it's hard for me to hold on to that. I know I'm a broken record with this kind of thing, and every time I talk about it, I feel like I shouldn't, because it just sounds like I'm just trying to solicit praise from people. But it means a lot, and realizing that I'm not a young man anymore, and I'm looked at by people who love the minor leagues as someone who helped create a community for them and who helped contextualize travel and who inspired them to do their own travels. And that means a lot, because there's sometimes I don't want to do this anymore for various reasons. But as long as I get that kind of feedback, as long as I'm still killing it with the chicken dances and being congratulated everywhere I go in the wake of dancing like a chicken, including 3 times just while at a urinal in the restroom alone, then I'm going to keep being on the road, because where else can you get that kind of experience? Minor league baseball, folks, still at it. Thanks for listening.
No ghosts of the minors this week. We've been abandoned by Josh Jackson. Whatever,
That's not
dude.
fair to Josh.
No, of course not.
It's been an incredibly busy week. I mean, we didn't even talk about the MLB Combine on this week. We'll leave that to our sister show, the MLB Pipeline podcast. But that was going on this week. Rickwood was going on, and just it's not like minor league baseball stopped.
He abandoned us, Sam. How dare you? No, Josh, we love you. So we will return to the hallowed halls of Ghosts of the Minors coming up next week.
Well, one thing I will say though, that game last night, and Johnny Bolin, who I met at Rickwood, it was great to see him. Hi, Johnny. Thanks as always for listening.
Friend of the show.
Yeah.
Johnny Bolin.
Pointed out that they should have brought in Josh Jackson for that old timey inning.
Man, I know.
Oh,
Joe Davis saying, I'm not going to try the voice. I know who would do the voice.
I know
who would knock the voice out of the park.
Would have been incredible.
Yeah.
He is our own weekly taste of the baseball days of yore. Just not this week. By the way, another friend of the show, Lynn Smith, got in touch to give us a thanks for the shout out for her fantastic suggested names for our fictional minor league team, the Huntington Hellbenders. The identity is on the way soon. And with that, we need to get to the latest edition of the game show craze sweeping the nation. It's time for this week's Name That Dude. In place of Ben Hill, Kelsie Hennigan will join us to try to name this dude. And the dude this week is mine, and the guessing is yours. And we will kick things off by telling you that this dude was drafted by the San Francisco Giants. This makes me feel ancient for some reason, that this dude was drafted by the San Francisco Giants with the 15th overall pick in the 1988 MLB June Amateur Draft. I thought easily 5-6 years after that was when this dude was drafted. Evidently not. He was drafted out of St. Bernard High School, or maybe St. Bernard High School in Playa del Rey, California. And prior to 1992 was the 6th ranked prospect in all of baseball, according to Baseball America. Of course, that was prior to the existence of things like MiLB.com and MLB Pipeline. But he made his debut, professionally that is, in 1988 with the Everett Giants of the then Class A short season Northwest League. 1989, he made the climb to Clinton in the Midwest League at Class A, the Clinton Giants, and then the San Jose Giants. They had a lot of very inventive names for these teams as he climbed the ladder in 1989. 1990, graduated from the then Class A Advanced California League with the San Jose Giants to the following year, the AA Shreveport captains. They were not the Giants. And then made his major league debut with 9 games at the age of 21, his age 21 season with the San Francisco Giants. He also spent 48 games that year with the Phoenix Firebirds. And really, from that point on, did not make a ton of appearances in minor league baseball. In 1999, he spent a couple of games in the Rangers organization with the AAA Oklahoma Redhawks, not Oklahoma City, not the Oklahoma City Baseball Club, not the Oklahoma City Dodgers, the Oklahoma Redhawks, who were in Oklahoma City. The only other time he found himself in a minor league game was in 2007 as part of a rehab appearance, presumably, in the Boston Red Sox organization with the Pawtucket Red Sox. But this gent, just one of those guys who had like a really nice big league career. He played parts of 17 major league seasons, the majority of them with the San Francisco Giants. But I will say, to hone in on a thing here, I remember him most for the mantle that he inherited as a member of the St. Louis Cardinals. He was a member of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Never mind.
From 1996 through 1998. He was actually an all-star in 1997, but he spent 3 years with the Cardinals, 3 years with the Texas Rangers, 2 with the Chicago White Sox, 1 with the Diamondbacks, Rockies, Red Sox, Reds, Nationals, Blue Jays, and Brewers. Parts of one season. He only played 8 games for the Red Sox.
Okay. All right. Now I feel better because I was like 2007 Pawtucket. I should know this.
No, you should not, because he only played 7 games with Pawtucket in 2007 and 8 with the big league club. He did play 69 nice games with the Toronto Blue Jays in 2007, but that was his final big league season. And this is a tricky one. This is a tough one, because it's a name that I know when you hear it, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, totally. But it's not an easy one.
So you think of him more as a Cardinal?
As a Cardinal. But I don't know if maybe I'm the only one. There will be a reason why. In fact, the reason why has already been named on this podcast today in a roundabout way. This will make sense to you shortly thereafter.
For some reason, Fernando Vina is coming to mind.
No, that's a good choice. A good guess.
I don't think he bopped around nearly as much as that, though.
It is not Fernando Vina.
What were his years with the Cardinals again?
His years with the Cardinals were 1996, 1997, and 1998.
Oh, okay. No, that's much too early.
There was something that happened with the Cardinals around that time. Let's say it was a transitional period for the Cardinals, maybe in terms of player personnel, maybe in terms of a retirement with the Cardinals in 1996.
Okay.
This was a position player. I don't know if I nailed that down. Okay.
The way you said played games.
Right. Yeah, 8 games, I guess would be a little tricky. Let's see. What else can I narrow down for you with this gentleman? This is actually fascinating. This is in no way going to narrow this down for you. But he evidently, now this is according to Wikipedia, so who knows, but he evidently started entertainment companies that worked to develop walk-up music for batters and theme songs for players, including one written for Tim Lincecum that aired on MLB on Fox during Game 5 of the 2010 World Series. No idea.
Obviously I know that.
Had no idea cool. that was like a thing. I remember remember Josh Harrison used to go to the plate to songs that his brother wrote for him. Josh Harrison's brother was a music producer. Probably still is, but he created songs for him. And like Yoenis Cespedes had like that custom walk-up song that had his name in it. But I didn't know that like somebody made a company that did this.
So
did he replace Willie McGee?
No, but you're on the right track.
Did he replace Ozzy?
Yes. He may have.
He may have.
He may have, Sam.
We're talking about a shortstop.
A mid-90s dude in Major League Baseball. 5 seasons to start with the Giants and then 3 with the Cardinals, and he may have been replacing Ozzie Smith during that time.
He was a 90s shortstop, but he was not shirtless on Sports Illustrated.
He was not. That is true. He was not a Sports Illustrated cover guy. That is true.
God,
But like a very fine career. Like you look at his career, for by 90s, 2000s, standards, like it was a pretty decent dude.
I'm completely blanking here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about the 06, 07 Blue Jays because that's more my foray into baseball, but I don't know.
07, 69 games with the Blue Jays. Prior to that, he spent 06 with the Nats and the Reds, 05 with the D-backs, 04 with the Rockies. He was on a fantastically terrible Rockies team in 2004. I enjoyed watching him. All right, you give up?
No. I'm gonna give myself one more question. And I don't know what it because like for some reason, like giant shortstops Rich Aurelia came to mind.
Right.
Rich Aurelia was later.
He was.
He definitely would not have been replacing Ozzie Smith.
Correct.
I'm just trying to make myself feel better. Like, some things about some players, none of which is helpful to this conversation. But
Right. He also evidently was in the movie The Rookie and was also in Moneyball. And he portrayed Miguel Tejada.
Royce Clayton?
Yes, Royce Clayton. Royce Clayton is the answer.
Yeah, Royce Clayton played Miguel Tejada. Yeah.
I did not remember that about Moneyball. I'm sure when I was watching it, I was like, is that Royce Clayton? Is he playing Miguel Tejada?
Yeah.
See, I did not know that, at least in my recollection of it. But yes, Royce Clayton. How about Royce Clayton? 17-year big league career.
I believe it. I mean, he looked great in Moneyball. Didn't really look quite like Miguel Tejada if you've followed any of the A's teams. Right. And highlights one of my bigger problems with that movie. I love that movie very dearly. And I get it why it's such a hit. But then you're just like, is Barry Zito mentioned in this whatsoever?
Right.
Is Tim Hudson?
Right.
Is Mark Mulder? Like, are we just going to acknowledge the three-headed monster in the rotation, or no? We're just going to say David Justice.
It's just Kevin Youkilis walking a lot. Royce Clayton also, by the way, listed at 6 foot 175 on his baseball reference page. Miguel Tejada, 5'9", 220. Not quite the same build. For a couple of guys who spent a lot of time starring at big league shortstop positions. But yeah, Royce Clayton, 17-year big league career. And that's just what I remember. I remember when Ozzie Smith retired, Royce Clayton was like, oh, he's going to be the guy. And I was like, how can you just be the guy to replace Ozzie Smith? Ozzie Smith played his final season with the Cardinals in 1996. He was an all-star, by the way, but he played 82 games. And in his age 41 season, he hit 282 with a 728 OPS. And then they were just like, this Royce Clayton kid, he's got it. Like, what? And he was really good the next year. He was fine. He was an all-star. The numbers weren't like outstanding, but how, it's like when they asked Didi Gregorius, like, you're going to take over for Derek Jeter. How does anybody do that? That's such a thankless job. You can't do anything right.
Yeah.
But Royce Clayton parlayed it into a pretty good career.
Exactly. The pressure alone of following those footsteps. But I mean, someone has to, and it's probably better to be a mediocre player. Not that I'm not making comments about Didi or Royce, but then someone who's like really good and like even more because they're not quite there. They're almost there. But I don't know. Someone has to do it.
Royce Clayton also evidently married a sprinter who was on the Great Britain Olympic team in 2000. And he credited her, Samantha Davies, with teaching him to keep his legs in condition for the longevity of his baseball career by running 200-meter sprints during the offseason to maintain his speed. Did not know. And he was a member of that atrocious 2004 Rockies team, but he was so much fun to watch. 279 hitter with a 735 OPS. I enjoyed Royce Clayton. Royce Clayton and Aaron Miles, they were the middle infield for that team. Just a couple of scrappers. Jeremy Burnitz was on that team. Preston Wilson was on that team. Anyway, that's all. Samuel, nice job getting Royce Clayton for this week's episode of Name That Dude. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. Huge thanks to Ben for checking in from the road, to the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp as well, and of course to everyone in Birmingham and throughout the stops that Sam and Kelsie made this week. And for Kelsie Hennigan, Sam Dykstra, the absent Josh Jackson, Benjamin Hill, and all the rest, my name is Tyler Mon, and we will catch you next week.